Hey, welcome back to the Barbershop Mental Initiative, Season 1. I'm honored to have a very special guest on, one that I consider a friend and a brother. But before we get started, as always, I want to open up with a quick monologue. And this is in the form of, I guess, a slogan. I think oftentimes when we enjoy good food, when we come together as a family, we often love particular people's cooking. But we never take time to get the ingredients from that cook. So when that cook leaves, when that cook transitions, we miss what that cook provided because we didn't take time to get the ingredients and to learn how to cook it ourselves. I think today's session is going to be interesting. We're going to get some ingredients. We're going to talk about the power of understanding what that food represents and how that food can transcend to other generations. And I'm happy to welcome my friend and my brother, Darryl Lockett. Thanks for being on, brother.
I'm happy to be in the shop. I came, I was trying to get a cut. It's been a couple weeks in between since I've seen my barber. We've had
you still look good, man.
A lot going on in Indianapolis.
Yeah.
To get an appointment, it's been tough.
Absolutely.
Man. It's been tough.
Absolutely. Man, listen, man, I'm not going to go into your long history of the things that you've accomplished in life. I'm going to let people Google you, and they're going to find all that. They're going to see all those headshots. But I open up. Mugshots. But I open up every session, man, with this question. Mm-hmm. Who and what in your life shaped you to be Darryl Lockett today?
So, I don't think anything happens by chance or coincidence. I believe that we are walking in ordained spaces. I believe that the people that have been placed in my life, the spaces I've been afforded and blessed and so fortunate to travel, have been divinely placed. And there's a divine sort of inspiration that has been a through line in my life. By no doing of my own, I was fortunate enough to be born to Ronald Joseph Lockett.
Man.
My father here in Indianapolis, Indiana.
He's a great man.
It's not so much, him saying to do X or to do Y, to avoid A or to, do B, but watching him and the sort of inspiration that, you can, gain from having that father figure is something that I don't take for granted. I recognize and realize that many kids, aren't born into those same circumstances by no doing of their own.
Right.
So I think it becomes incumbent upon us who were fortunate enough to be raised with a sense of discernment, to be raised with a father who puts their hand on your shoulder and guides you sometimes against what you might want for yourself, but into the ways that you need to go, that you should go, to pass that on to somebody else. So, I would definitely start with my father. But I think in Indianapolis, in the time that I was born and raised here, I was fortunate enough to be, reared within a community of very strong leaders at that time, where many of them, as I've learned a lot about the ethnography of the city and the populating of Indianapolis, many of them were transplants.
Yeah.
My father was a transplant here from Houston, Texas,
H-Town
in the South, H-Town, 5th Ward, Houston, Texas. But many of his professional peers and colleagues were transplants as well. So many of the other engineers, my father being an engineer that I knew, the chemists that I were associated with, the lawyers, the medical doctors were, gentlemen who had chosen to plant their professional roots in this city, to raise their families in this city, but invested in me as an extension of that family. There's some folks who are fortunate enough to have grandparents, great-grandparents, and, I think you're 4th or 5th generation Hoosier in that regard. That wasn't my testimony in a sense, but I had, uncles that weren't by blood, but by, strong relationships who provided an example for me to follow, but also some of that guidance to put, their hand on my shoulder and redirect me in that right direction, to see me when I'm in the right places and affirm me and reassure me in those spaces, but also to let me know when they saw me in the wrong places.
That's right.
And, steer me back in that direction. So, those individuals that were either in my church, civic leaders, professional leaders and champions that, really invested in me. I can think of, even a few professional organizations in this city that still exist to this day that, I've, grown up a few years, so I've taken membership in some of them myself, that said, hey, I recognize what you're doing in the classroom just as much as the city or the news might recognize what another gentleman is doing on the court, or doing on their field and their sport or play. But to nurture that interest in me, nurture those accomplishments, nurture those demonstrable achievements at a young age was formative in my growth and development, and something that I think is essential to pass on to young people here in the city today.
Come on, man. I love it, man. You hit a lot of great things. Thank you for bringing your father out. I think it's a common thread that I'm hearing when I ask that question, that oftentimes people start with that foundation as family. But I also appreciate how you recognize that that's not the testimony, as you said, of everyone. And also I appreciate how you talked about how your parents were transplants here, but you were raised here with not blood relatives, but people that your father, your mom, have put and surrounded you as great influences, and those people either told you yes or no. That's powerful. Because I think that oftentimes with mentorship, people think mentorship is all about people telling me yes and empower me. But let's talk about the power of no in your life. How has the no in your life helped guide you to where you at now?
So, again, getting back to what I believe is, this divine, guidance and inspiration that we have on our lives. I often, I can't remember what age I was when I first learned it, but I've tried to embrace to not pray that God bless what I want, but to change my heart to want what He's already blessed.
That's deep,
to
brother.
Walk within His will.
That's deep.
And when that kind of came over me, I realized that a lot of this is about having the right heart posture. We make plans for ourselves.
Yeah.
And, we have a goal. I want to be a CEO by 45.
Man.
I want to be, and sometimes that is our course.
Yeah.
That is the path that He's, destined and ordained for us. But other times, that's just us talking.
Yeah, it is.
And we have to ask ourselves. Socrates says the unexamined life is not worth living. And we have to ask those critical questions of ourselves to understand, what is our motivation?
Yeah.
Is it masking an insecurity? Is it speaking to some unreconciled striving? Is it speaking to some jealousy, envy, want, wish that we have, to then get a better understanding of what we should do and what we shouldn't do, so that we better understand some of those closed doors and some of those no's. Because, He can open a door that no man can close.
Yeah.
He can close a door
No,
that
no man can open. Right.
At some point you realize this ain't about me.
Ain't about me.
This is bigger than me.
Yeah.
But what I have the responsibility of doing is asking myself and understanding the why. Why did this opportunity not open the way that I wanted it to open? Because I realized my thoughts will lead me into some directions and some spaces I don't need to be.
Man,
and I need to align my thoughts with His thoughts. Yeah. So in that sense where, I just needed to humble myself. I've noticed that when I've, put myself in the right heart posture, when I have, conceded that this is not anything that I'm doing, but just blessings that I am truly not deserving of, that's when doors have opened that you were previously no's, and things that, were previously no's that I thought I wanted. I realized that had I had that door open for me, I would have been in a mess. I would have been in a world that I wasn't prepared for, wouldn't have actually been meant to be in. So it's, accepting that your no is actually molding you and shaping you into the place or the person that you're supposed to be. And accepting that if it's not meant for you, it's not going to be. And if it is meant for you, there's nothing you can do to get away from it.
That's it. That's good. Now, Darryl, I'm going to tell a story. For those who don't know, Brother Lockett and I, we go back to when we were high schoolers. He went to some school called North Central, and I went to the best high school in Indianapolis called Arlington High School. Don't at me, people. Don't at me. I don't have time to go back talking about it. But long story short, he and I were both blessed to be a part of a civic organization called Kappa League. And Kappa League was started to get young African-American males into mentorship by a fraternity called Kappa Alpha Psi. And he and I both were in there. I was in the one at Arlington. He was in one at North Central. I think they had one at Cathedral, one at Warren Central. And we got together back when I was about 15 years old, I think. And we kind of stayed in touch since then. But what was interesting about Kappa League, as I think about it now, Brother Lockett, is that what we were being exposed to were a sense of brotherhood and mentorship then by people who were in a fraternity, but they did a great job of pulling all these people on various sides of town together. And we kind of created something where we were able to stay in contact with us, and the goal was always college. And as I think about our upbringing in Indianapolis and where God has allowed us to be at, right? I went to a historically black college and university. You went to one as well. At my HBCU, there was a lot of mentorship too. People who saw something in me, took me beyond the classroom and the books, and they poured into me. Not family related, but on an academic level, it challenged me to see beyond and kind of planted a heart of servanthood in me. Not to say it wasn't there, but kind of reaffirmed it. I'll be honest with you, Darryl, I'm concerned about Indianapolis now because I see youth who are growing up and who did not have those same spears or platforms that we've had. That's my perspective. You back in Indianapolis, you've been blessed to travel outside of Indianapolis and see it. Where would you place your meteorology, or where would you place your thumb on mentorship now as it relates to the community and for youth?
So, as you hinted, I was away for about 20 years, just shy of 20 years, seeing many different contexts, many different paradigms, many different constructs, and seeing kids born into similar circumstances in these different constructs, paradigms, and contexts. That did open my eyes to quite a bit. That did give me refresh the lens in which I looked at my hometown. There are a few concepts that I think, from a sociological standpoint, we have to wrestle with, those who are in positions of influence or positions of access, where they can intimately shape and mold the lives of young people. A few of these are the concept of strain theory, the concept of enemy. These are very sociological, sort of postulates that then have now found a home within understandings of societal and even criminal behavior, where one does not conform to the rules, norms, and customs of a community that they don't feel a part of. If I don't see this place as my home, why am I going to honor the rules of this community if I don't feel any level of connection to this space? Just to kind of bring that home, so to make that concept very transparent and clear. When I was the executive director with the Kennedy King Memorial Initiative, a resident in the community said, "I can't believe the state of this park. Folks are letting their dogs defecate all over the park. There's vermin near the grill and the barbecue grill, and people aren't picking up trash, and there's litter. And I just can't believe people are doing this." He was a new resident to the community, this very historic community here in Indianapolis, which has a deep, rich history. He didn't understand why the surrounding community wasn't taking care of the park the way that he wanted to take care of the park. And I said, well, have you thought about their relationship with this park? He said, well, what do you mean by that? And I said, well, you said that they are letting their dogs defecate in this park. I bet you good money that they aren't letting their dogs defecate on their living room floor. You say you're upset with how they're, taking ownership of this park and leaving things to rot by, but I bet if you were to go to their home, you'd have to take your shoes off at the door, because they have a value, appreciation, a respect, and understanding of what they want to maintain in their home, but they no longer see this broader community context of this public park as their home. So then I put it upon you, new resident, what can you do to help them feel more at home in this space? So when we look at a concept of something like learned helplessness, when it's been generations upon generations of outcomes that have been less than favorable for particular communities in this city, people using their very rational mind lose that belief or optimism that something different would happen that has never happened before in their lives. If everyone that they've seen has stopped and capped out their educational journey at high school, what's going to say, hey, I'm going to go and get a PhD? If everyone that they've seen has taken up, an economy that is not embraced by the Indiana Economic Development Corporation, where do they see themselves fitting into this construct or context? And an object at rest remains at rest. And an object in motion remains in motion
right.
unless acted upon by an outside force. I've read a lot of books. I can't claim that one. That goes to my brother Newton. But then, who is that outside force?
Right.
That is then indicting each and every one of us who may not live in that particular experience, who may have seen something different, to then act upon the lives of individuals who may have not been afforded that opportunity. So, yes, it is not a bad thing to leave Indianapolis, to experience another part of the world, to then bring those learnings, those experiences that lived, reality, and then color the context in which we operate here in Indianapolis.
Absolutely.
Because some of that learning can be that external stimuli that prompts a new direction or a new path for folks who have now gotten into this sort of river of thinking.
Absolutely.
Where they have dug and for generations, it's become almost a ditch that they don't see a way out of. Well, they don't see a way out of with the tools that have been made available to them. But there's some other tools that they may not even realize can be used in this manner.
So exposure has been one of the things, as I hear the common thing, exposure and your ability to leave, and now you're back, has really helped to color some of the things that are black and white that you feel that are lacking in mentorship. I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I want to make sure that I'm understanding you, because when I posed that question about what's lacking in mentorship, what I heard was a theme is that it's hard to mentor people who are still in the same place where those that are trying to mentor at, in the same place, maybe being defined by lack of exposure, lack of pushing them beyond what is quote unquote normal or success. Is that correct?
Yes and no. Let me, it's nuanced in a sense, because I believe that mentors can be in any backyard, in any context.
Okay.
Some mentors, may have traveled the world. Some mentors may have traveled the block.
Okay.
Because the part that I do want to hone in on, any man can learn from his own mistakes, but a wise man can learn from the mistakes of others. That wise man can only learn from those mistakes of others if they're in relationship with others who are willing to be transparent, willing to be honest, willing to be real about their experiences, both the good and the bad, to then inform that wise man as to how he might improve or ready or right or more steady his path. So that sort of relationship is key. That transparency, that open and honesty is key. You talk quite a bit about gardening, but you got to get dirty. To garden. You have to be willing to put your hands in places that might not be as pristine in order to produce the produce that you're trying to create. So in the same sense, you have to have people who are willing to be open, honest, and transparent about their experiences, sharing that experience by being in relationship proximity with others so that they can learn from those mistakes that you might have made.
Absolutely.
What good is it if I want you to bump your head simply because I had to bump my head? That's not progress. And we talk about it in the fraternity all the time. We were training for leadership within, the broader Guide Right program of Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity. But it's so that my floor can be your ceiling. I'm sorry, I said it the wrong way. So that my ceiling
can be your floor. Right.
So where I end up after all of my, trials and efforts is where you start as your baseline, because all of the learnings, takeaways, and knowledge that I have, I deposit into the next generation so that they can build upon that. I have to be in proximity. I have to be open, honest, and transparent. And I have to really develop that relationship to have that, shared belief, because, people don't care about what you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And that's where, we really have to have that proximity. I definitely believe another piece that I don't hold a lot of people their feet to the fire, because I truly believe that if you knew better, you do better. And you can't dream for what you can't conceive. You can't conceive what, you can't imagine. You can't imagine what you don't know. And
it's
then
hard.
It becomes incumbent upon those who do know. Right. To share and teach. Because we can't just expect somebody to start dreaming different if they've not been given, as you said earlier, the ingredients, the recipe to do anything different.
That's
so,
it.
There is a culpability upon the mentor to be in relationship with the mentee and to really pass on those ingredients and that recipe card that's teaching them how to put those ingredients that are available to them, where to go to find a few more ingredients into the recipe to bake that delicacy.
Right. I like how you brought that back up, man, because every recipe should grow with every generation, right? There's a value in this cast iron skillet that can last for over 100 years, and that's why it's passed down. But a lot of but the challenge is folk don't know how to keep that cast iron skillet clean.
Yeah.
Not to get into cooking because we get hungry.
You're the chef. I'm just the eater.
But what you say?
I can tell you when I taste some.
Hey, you can tell when you taste it.
You can make some good food. But when you were saying that, I was thinking New Orleans.
Yeah.
I love the food in New Orleans.
Oh yes.
My wife, and I thank you so much for a birthday present a few years ago. She took me on a food tour of New Orleans, and we did cooking class in New Orleans.
Shout out to Dr. Amanda. Come on.
Yes.
Solid.
And in this, as we were at this cooking class, we think of etouffee, we think of gumbo, we think, what are some other, New Orleans cuisines?
Crawfish, all that, yeah.
But when I was down there, I was learning that Creole food is actually this food of the New World. And that's, where it comes by and the origins of it, and how it kind of grows. And it's actually ever evolving. Yeah. So when you look at some of the new populations that are in New Orleans, we know about Congo Square and some of the early African settlers that were brought to this, sort of French colony down in the south. But now there's a large Vietnamese population. The Vietnamese influence on Creole food is something that you would not even imagine, but it is alive and well in New Orleans. Because it's ever evolving, it's ever growing with the new context, the new people, the new exposure, the new understanding that comes to a place. As we're welcoming new transplants to Indianapolis day in and day out, as new companies are bringing their headquarters here, as new businesses are bringing their employees here, let's take some of that experience and add their ingredients to our recipe to create a delicacy that doesn't take away from the traditional but takes on a new flair into what we carry on to the next generation.
Man, that's powerful, brother. All right, man, so we can keep going on a lot of areas.
Food, of course.
Man, listen, I got to get off of food because my stomach is going to interrupt this, bro. Listen, but I got to ask you this question. Man, I'm extremely honored to be called a friend of yours. I'm honored to be able to be having conversation and you even taking time to come down here to the shop, right, to be here. But as we dive into the age that we're in, we're both in our early 40s. Right?
I just got there.
Man, join me. Come on, join me. But we both in our early 40s. We have family, young family. I got another one on the way. Yours is
5-3-1.
5-3-1 with Apple
zone defense.
Yeah. He has another one coming too, y'all. Get ready. I'm claiming it. Come on to the 4 Club.
Oh man.
But with the responsibilities of a young family, right? People ask me like, bro, how do you find time for this? And you're in a similar place with me, man. Your wife is also working, have her own visions, but a mom, a dad, and you, with your passions and with your ideas, with your settling moment of understanding that God is either opening doors or closing doors, how do you find time to fill your bucket to keep you going?
Well, I think, and I'm going to take a little detour to the left to come back to the right. My dad's youngest brother is a psychiatrist. So anytime we have a family gathering, it's a free session. But one of the things that he told me, he said there are a couple of things that I know to be true, and anybody that you meet. But one of them he told me is that people operate in their own selfish interest. But you must first get an understanding of how they define self, what is included in their definition of self, and who is included in their definition of self. So in taking care of my family, that's taking care of me, because I see them as one and the same. So it's prioritizing self. Everyone is talking about self-care, self-care, self-care. Put on your mask first before you serve someone and serve somebody else. But if I genuinely see my wife as my right hand is just an extension of me. My children as an extension of me. I have a sense of fulfillment that I get from seeing them happy, from seeing them whole, seeing them healthy, and it actually does something for me. You know, if I'm not in right communication or relationship with those that I consider to be a part of myself, I physically feel that. So finding those times to have that sort of, moment where I'm, playing, my son is really big into animals. He's now, studying ecosystems and wants to play these games where we sustain an ecosystem. And, we had to keep one alive for 12 days. Shout out to PBS Kids games. It's free. Get on it. The kids love it. PBS Kids.
Let's go.
We were trying to preserve an ecosystem for 12 days, and we got there and we kept everything alive. To see the joy on his face, that's filling my tank.
That's your tank.
And, it's not in the conventional sense of, I got hobbies where I, separate myself for 3 hours and go lock myself up.
I know that's right.
In a back room. And no, I don't have any of those because I, in the truest sense of an extrovert, get energy and fulfillment from other people. Those other people happen to be the people that are most close to me in my wife and in my children. So seeing the joy on their face refills me on a daily basis. Seeing, their growth and development. I crossed something off of my bucket list last year. I always said that, I wanted to be my son's Little League baseball coach. But just seeing that joy. So he asked me this year, are you going to coach again? I said, no, I did that. Oh, no, but I want you to be my coach. That does something for me.
Absolutely.
Just knowing that, we have that sort of bond and that relationship, but knowing how much he, feels, fulfillment in my presence is sort of rewarding for me because before being anything professionally, before having any title professionally, I, think of myself as a husband and a father.
That's right.
And I'm fortunate enough to work with people who sort of share in that. And I encourage anyone to sort of build that into your own career arc and career trajectory. That you work at a place that allows you, wants you, encourages you to first be a spouse and a parent.
That's heavy, brother.
As much as they, want to see you succeed for their bottom line or their shareholders, shareholders' value. Because, and there's a quote that my wife and I laugh about. 20 years from now, your kids are the only people that will remember you worked late.
That's heavy.
That coworker, that boss is not going to remember that you came in on the weekends and pounded out a report. Your kids will.
That's right. That's right.
So if you can, if you need to, go do yoga in the park, go do yoga in the park. That works for you. I don't, cast aspersions upon what refills someone else. But as for me,
yes, sir.
Then, my constitution and my, the way I just, find joy and happiness, it comes from my family.
That's great. Ladies and gentlemen, this is my boy, Darryl Lockett. Thank you so much for being here. Where can people find out more information on you, what you're doing, if they want to get in touch with you, if they're inspired by the words you spoke, man?
Well, of course, if you reach out to Fred, you can always find me. We have a relationship now. If he, puts me together with somebody on the email, I'm going to respond, because I know, you're good people if you are in a relationship with my good brother Yankee here. But my day job that keeps me employed, in a sense, I am the Whole Health and Health Equity Director for Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield, Indiana Medicaid, where I seek to, ensure to the best of our abilities and resources that no one's health outcomes are faded by their socioeconomic condition or circumstance. That everyone, we fundamentally believe, is entitled to the best health that they can possibly receive, recognizing that 80% of one's health outcomes are built by external factors and forces and not anything that is physical to them. but the communities that they live in.
Absolutely.
The environment, the air that they breathe, the transportation systems that do get them or do not get them to doctor's appointments, the educational exposure and environment that they grow up in.
Ecosystem.
The ecosystem.
Come on, brother.
My son is trying to keep manatees alive. But,
and you trying to, it's the same concept.
My man alive.
Yeah.
So in the same sense, that is my, day job that keeps me busy, but keeps me active, addressing needs of individuals wherever we see disparate health outcomes in the 92 counties of the state of Indiana. But just active in community involvement because I realize that there are a lot of touch points to reach people in this space. So, just trying to stay active, of course, in the civic life of Indianapolis, of course, after the life of my children.
Absolutely. But, family first, that's right.
Active in the civic life of Indianapolis. My wife and I are very, very passionate about education. We share a belief that improving one's economic and educational opportunities are the surest way to improve the quality of their life and the quality of their children's lives. So what can we do as a family to utilize the resources, the education that we've been afforded, the relationships, the tables that I've been invited to sit at, to make an opportunity or an expanding opportunity for someone else who is only at that table through me, who's only at that table through me championing their concerns, their needs, their wants. We recognize and talk about this quite a bit that living in this capitalistic society, folks are able to articulate their demand through their dollar. Yeah. So folks who don't have a dollar can't articulate their demand. You can go to the grocery store and they know that you like Madagascar vanilla because you buy Madagascar vanilla, and they know when you come and buy it that they need to restock it. But to my brother or my sister who doesn't have those economic means to articulate their wants and their needs in this marketplace, who's there to be a champion and be a voice for them? And who is there able to not just take up a seat at the table, but to elongate the table so that they can sit at the table and share their own story. So my wife and I spend a lot of time really in these spaces, both from a healthcare perspective where I am now. My wife is doing so much in the education space.
Yeah. While you talking, man, this is what we're gonna do, man. I'm gonna bring you back for season 2. And I want you to bring your wife, because when you mention that and the type of work that you all are doing as a family that's impacting people who are not quote unquote blood family, I think that can really set the tone and spark, but I like, for lack of better words, a revival of what we're trying to talk about for mentorship. Man, thank you, brother. I got to cut this off, man. But y'all, I told y'all this was great. This is what we have in Indianapolis, and this is mentorship. And I appreciate your time, your passion, and the integrity in which you talk. Ladies and gentlemen, Darryl Lockett. Thanks, man.
Thank you, brother. Can I get a cut there?
Yeah, I got you. Stay tuned, man. Thanks, man.